Hello, Athlos artists, and welcome back to your art class. Before we get beginning, again, I miss you all dearly. I always love being able to make art with you on this weekly basis, though. So today we're going to be doing something based off of storytelling through a visual medium or in a visual way. So a lot of times when we think of storytelling, you might think of written in story, like in books, so it's actual written out. But there are so many different kinds of ways to tell stories. So there's visual, like what we're going to be doing, and then there's also through speech. So I don't know if you're like me, but it's often fun to be able to tell a quick little story, even if it's like you just met a friend that you haven't been around for a while and you're telling them about how the last couple weeks have gone. That is a story. If you love telling stories, then actually you are similar to the artist we're going to be learning about today, which is Fonseca. He's here on screen. He liked to do a lot of stories from when he was a kid, a lot of Cuban folk tales, but he would have put his own special twist on it. So this is one of his pieces on the left there. And so he was inspired by a lot of these bedtime stories. And then he was also very inspired by the traditional paintings of New Guinea, which had the very warm tones and the browns that you see here. So now it's your turn then to come up with a story. Like I said, it could be something super simple. The three main parts of a story is characters, action, and setting. And so in all of these pieces of Fonseca's, there is a story, there's characters, action, and setting. Those are some of the three basic parts. And so you can think of whatever you want, and that is going to be your story. Just write in a sentence or two, just because we're going to be doing that today, and then tomorrow we're also going to be doing something with this. And so I don't want you to accidentally forget your story in between days. And so just write in a sentence or two something that has some characters. So I have an example of Rosa Parks, something that has an action that could be scoring the winning goal, and then something that has a setting, which could be something like Wakanda. If you have no ideas, you can think of the best day ever. Maybe there was a time where it was just like your favorite day and you look back and you're like, man, that was a great day. It could be maybe an embarrassing moment. It could be maybe you scoring the winning goal or I don't know, scoring the winning touchdown on a homecoming game or something. It could be an argument that you worked out with a friend. I know that if you're really good friends with someone, sometimes there's disagreements, and it's really encouraging to be able to see how you were able to resolve that conflict. So it could be a story about a hard time you had with a friend and then got over. It could even be the plot or basic summary of a book or movie. The only thing is, just like however Fonseca did, if you pick a plot of a movie or book or anything like that, make sure to put your own special twist on it. Because like I always say, as artists, we don't copy other people's ideas, we make something new. And so you can use it as inspiration. Like I myself love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Actually, my necklace I'm wearing right now is the ring from Lord of the Rings. But if I was going to do something based off of Lord of the Rings, I would need to make sure that I changed it or did my own version of it. So maybe I make up a character that belongs in that world that it's happening. So once you have those three main parts, afterwards, we need to design our characters. And you might have noticed that these characters that Fonseca has, they don't exactly look realistic. They are something that is called abstract. And we can do some kind of abstract art, which abstract means that it's not trying to be realistic or not realistic. We've kind of mentioned this before, but we can do this by actually trying to make our characters using the initials of our name. So the first and last, or the first letter of our first and last name. So again, this is reviewing that abstract is not trying to be realistic. And actually this idea of making images out of just letters rather than, I don't know, things you would normally think of like a picture is actually quite common. So this is a piece where it's actually made up using Arabic writing, and that's very common, using Arabic writing to create this beautiful image. So this one is called Vision of the Tomb. So what you got to do is you actually start with your first initial. So on the top left, that is an F, because that is the first initial of my first name. And then you make a character based off of that. So when you went back to your story, you got to think, how many characters do I have? And then use letters to actually make them. So on this one, I have an F, and then I also have a T, I have an A on that bottom left one, and it can be as cartoony or as realistic, excuse me, as you want. So the one right here with the T, that one's a little bit more realistic just because maybe that's your style. Like if I was doing like a serious story, like maybe the story about you overcoming a conflict, I might not want something as silly as some of these other ones. And so you can take your time with this, play around. You'll notice that my F, I don't even have a body or arms in here. It doesn't have to be real. Again, these are abstract, not realistic, or we're not trying to be realistic. And so you can just kind of have fun. Those two things, the story and then coming up with your characters and designing those characters, those are the only two things you need to worry about today. Tomorrow, we're going to be putting them together in an actual image, but I wanted to keep it simple, at least to start. Thank you so much for making art with me. I hope you have a good rest of your day.